We only have 24 hours in a day to get a million things done. For most people, you wake up in the morning, go to work, and sometimes spend up to 16 hours a day at the office, which is crazy. After that, you head home, have dinner, maybe watch a little TV, and head to bed. And the next day, you do it all over again, sometimes even on the weekends if you're lucky. We've also heard of people glorifying hustle culture, where you work as hard as you can, as much as you can, or people who are really proud of how little sleep they get, ignoring all signs of scientific studies and data that warn us of the many kinds of illnesses or negative effects of not resting enough. Then you have the rest of us, who are trying our best to also incorporate time to be with our loved ones, enjoy outdoor activities, indulge in our hobbies, or even just to check out and do absolutely nothing on the weekends. The point is, it shouldn't be this hard to have a meaningful and holistic life. We all need to find our balance, our zen. But what is making that impossible? What are some of the challenges we face as a society in achieving a work-life balance? And what can be done in Malaysia to help create the right awareness and changes to give all of us Malaysians a taste of a truly good life? Hi everyone, my name is Deborah Henry and you're watching Togetherness. The concept of work-life balance is becoming more mainstream, with more and more people taking to social media to speak up about the harsh realities of what the working world really looks like. Bosses, employees, and policymakers are now debating and discussing what the right kind of balance should look like. Not to forget, to what extent should work-life balance be regulated by law? Should it be mandated? Or should we leave it up to the discretion of employers? Of course, everyone has different definitions of this, and it depends on who you ask. A woman, a Dane, or an Asian parent. The pandemic also played a role in confusing us even more and complicating the situation. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we thought that working from home was the best idea ever. We get to work in our PJs all day long, eat whenever we want, sneak in some Netflix, play with the cats in between meetings, and best of all, save hours of sitting in terrible traffic. And then slowly but surely came the harsh truth. We realized that working from home also meant we couldn't escape our kids 24/7, there was no clock in, clock out, and our bosses expected us to be available all day long. We ended up working on the go, business hours became all hours, and the truth is, it became harder to draw boundaries. Somehow, we ended up with lesser time for ourselves. On top of the workload we have to take on, we also now have to bear the emotional labor of being there for our family 24/7 and unpaid care work around the clock. Women especially now know all of this too well. It came as a surprise to no one that burnout has become a serious and growing problem. Mental health was suddenly a very real thing. Us Asians couldn't dismiss it anymore. Hands up if you've had a parent tell you to just get over feeling depressed. We all have. So here we are today. The truth is, our perception of work-life balance is shaped by laws and, more importantly, our culture. But before we unpack the cultural aspects of this topic, let's look at some of the laws regulating work-life balance here in Malaysia. In Malaysia, a 48-hour work week was considered the standard, up to recently when an amendment to the labor laws to reduce working hours to 45 hours per week was passed. Yay, some good news for us. Now, this will take effect on the 1st of September. While this is still a far cry from the norm of 40 hours per week in many countries, it is nonetheless a step in the right direction. Not only that, but another recent amendment to the Employment Act will also hopefully allow employees more options to work remotely or flexibly. It looks like we're finally recognizing the high cost of employees' burnout to productivity and public health. While efforts to improve employee well-being are underway, decades of pro-business and pro-employer policy environment have made it difficult to undo the norms of working here. Things get more challenging when you couple that with the Asian way of working, where we value presentism, the act of showing up, than actual productivity. So changing laws and policies are one thing, but changing our work culture is the tricky part. From a cultural perspective, as Malaysians, we know too well about hustle culture. We take pride in our work more, work harder, be the first to arrive, the last to leave mentality. Leaving on time is considered a big no-no. And although we are entitled to our leave, we all know too well the guilt of taking that time off, a process that sometimes ends up with us being questioned non-stop. Being on the leave does not mean you're off the grid, especially with those dreaded please fix it pings. The hustle culture glorifies busyness, and we get caught up in the hype and compete for the title of the most overwhelmed. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, a competition that more often than not is rewarded with burnout. We are told that overworking is the only way to earn respect, and therefore we have to put work above everything else and put our everything into hard work. Is it a surprise then that KL has ranked third worst in terms of overworking city in the world? That's right. A recent study by Kissy, which ranks cities based on their success in promoting work-life balance to their citizens, KL ranks third out of 100 for most overworked. That's insane. Believe it or not, it does not have to be this way. Many countries are recognizing the harm of overworking and have moved towards embracing well-being. So what does work-life balance look like in different cultures? Do you know that in France, the right to disconnect law prohibits your employers from contacting you outside of working hours? Can we sue them? And in Sweden, new parents are entitled to a whopping 480 days of parental leave, with 3 months specifically allocated for the dad. And various evidence also shows that Sweden's generous parental leave policy has helped normalize men's involvement in childcare. Oh my God, he's such a hands-on dad. That statement will be a thing of the past. Now I know what you're thinking. It sounds pretty unproductive to me. Working fewer hours a week, has the world gone mad? Can you imagine what our parents would say? Malasnya, want to be rich but don't want to work. Well, in many countries around the world, a longer working week does not necessarily result in higher productivity. For example, a study by OECD in 2019 found out the most productive countries work less hours. Ireland, Luxembourg, and Norway are examples that an optimum work-life balance does not take away high productivity. Now that's good to know. Employees who are happier at work and more fulfilled at home accomplish more. In fact, studies have shown that when an employee works for more than 50 hours a week, productivity starts to decline. There is also a business case for protecting your employees' work-life balance. A burnout and disengaged workforce equals to more sick days, less productivity, and a high turnover rate. This ultimately hurts your bottom line. I mean, just look at the great resignation movement that just happened, where people around the world are quitting their jobs in record numbers out of frustration. Or China's lie flat movement, where more and more people are retaliating against the grueling 996 lifestyle, working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week, in the face of relentless pressure to work hard and outperform their peers. That sounds like trauma. On the flip side, the West doesn't always have it all figured out. Do you know that in the US, one of the only advanced nations that does not mandate paid maternity leave? And as a result, female employees tend to hide their pregnancy out of fear of losing their jobs, and some even turn to work soon after giving birth. Malaysia is clearly way ahead when it comes to maternity leave. Work-life balance does not mean all play and no work, of course, but must it be all about work all of the time? And as a business owner and employer myself, I get it. All this may sound very scary. Look, as a reasonable boss, we understand boundaries. We want to respect your time too. But sometimes things just need to get done. But how do we go about it? We don't need to copy how the Europeans do it. We have our ways and they have theirs. And it took them years to get to where they are today. But perhaps it's time for some self-reflection and to ask ourselves, what is our definition of work-life balance? How do we change our culture of overworking and at the same time not normalize 3-hour lunch breaks? Well, perhaps it starts by having a conversation about it. So what's our solution? The tricky word here is balance. Of course, it starts at the top. Policies set the tone and leaders set the pace. You know what they always say, you never leave before your boss does, right? Well, the truth is, we always want to impress our bosses, hence we watch them. And if they work around the clock, shoot emails out at 2 a.m., never take vacations, and don't prioritize family and their well-being, chances are that this is the culture of the company. To redefine workplace culture, leaders should be deliberate and explicit about work-life balance boundaries. Perhaps set policies to limit communications outside of working hours, except in times of real emergency. And perhaps define what counts as an emergency in the first place. It is encouraging to see that many private companies here are implementing their own wellness policies. So bosses, let's make a conscious effort to lead by example. And that's also a reminder to myself. In Japan, for example, the Environment Minister Shinjiro Koizumi back in 2020 made history by taking paternity leave. It sounds insane saying this today, an unusual step in a country where only 3% of fathers take time off after the child is born. And this is funny considering Japan has one of the most generous paternity leaves. He was the first cabinet minister in the country to do so, creating shockwaves, as you can see from these headlines. Okay, so well-intending policies are great, but they need to be put into practice as well. Challenging deep ingrained work habits means there needs to be an active effort on the part of both employers and employees to set professional boundaries and cultivate a healthy work culture. Perhaps HR can start by incentivizing employees to utilize their leave entitlement and allow them to truly disconnect, our own mild version of the right to disconnect law, if you will. In 2014, German automaker Daimler officially launched a mail-on-holiday policy that auto-deletes emails that are sent to employees who are on leave. This is to ensure that employees are fully enjoying their time off without fearing an overflowing inbox when they return to the office. Wow. Okay, so maybe we are not quite ready for that just yet. Surely there is a middle ground between an overflowing inbox and an auto-delete email. Is work FOMO a thing? Also, clearly different industries work differently, and a one-size policy does not work for all. What if employers and employees can discuss internally what office boundaries should look like and set their own rules? For example, the right to disconnect law in France requires employers and employees to discuss what are their professional boundaries and review those rules every single year. This may work. The point is, these conversations may just kick off a new, healthier culture between everyone. Harvard's Business Review suggests that work-life balance is not a one-time fix, but rather a cycle that requires constant and conscious effort to maintain. Also, companies big and small should take advantage of the new norms from the pandemic and try out different working styles to see what works for everybody in the company. And employees, guess what, guys? They aren't robots. The pandemic was a massive work-from-home experiment that proved productivity has not taken a huge hit. Good to know. We all adjusted fairly well while surviving a pandemic, mind you, and people can be trusted to get the work done wherever they are. It is no surprise then that some companies have made remote working a permanent option moving forward. Also, do remember that various research has shown that Malaysians spend up to 44 hours in traffic every single month. That is torture. Imagine the time and money we could all save if we could work more flexibly. Lastly, don't just talk about mental health, do something about it. We spend most of our time at the office and with family, so both places need to be happy and positive. Your happiness matters. And are you happy at work? What can you do to create a more positive working environment? There is no denying that our brain and body need time to disconnect and recharge in order to unleash our full potential. So come on, Malaysians, we can and should do better. Work-life balance shouldn't be an elusive idea like a 5-day island vacation that you and I only dream about. Let's normalize working smart, working efficient, and learn to lepak a bit. Take a break, enjoy family. It all starts by challenging the norm and having a conversation about it.